All right, everyone, welcome back. Today, we're going to dive into AppLovin Corporation.
AppLovin Corporation.
Yeah, and they've been making kind of a splash in the mobile app world.
A big splash.
Yeah, big splash. And you guys have been following their stock, and for good reason. It's up over 450% year to date.
Wow.
So we're going to kind of try to understand what's going on there. We're going to look at, we've got their recent earnings call transcript and a stock analysis report that we're going to kind of sift through.
Yeah, I mean, what's interesting about AppLovin is it's not like a household name like some other, big tech companies, but it's kind of quietly like becoming a major player in this whole mobile app ecosystem.
So let's unpack that a little bit. I mean, they're in the business of helping app developers market and monetize their apps, right?
Exactly, yeah. So they act as this middleman, this connector between app developers and the advertisers who want to reach that massive, massive mobile audience.
So they're like the ultimate matchmakers of the mobile app world.
That's a good way to put it.
Okay.
Yeah.
But how exactly do they pull this off? I mean, what are their like secrets?
Yeah. So they've got this suite of software solutions, and each one kind of tackles a different piece of this puzzle. So their main one is called App Discovery. It's a marketing platform, and it uses these auctions to connect advertisers with the right app publisher. So it's kind of like a matchmaking service, but for targeted ads within apps.
Okay, so that's how those ads for all those like mobile games that I play keep popping up on my phone.
Exactly, exactly. Then they have Adjust, which is an analytics platform.
Adjust.
So this one helps marketers track how well their app campaigns are performing. Things like whether people are clicking on the ads, are they actually downloading the apps, are they using them? And, data's king these days, and Adjust helps them make sense of it all.
Makes sense. You got to know what's working, what's not.
Yeah.
And then there's MX, right?
Yeah, so MAX, it helps app developers maximize their ad revenue.
Okay.
So it runs these real-time auctions for ad space within apps, making sure developers are getting the best possible price for their inventory. It's all about optimization.
Wow. So they've basically got this entire like mobile app advertising life cycle covered,
Yeah.
from finding advertisers
Yeah.
to, measuring performance to, optimizing those ad placements. It sounds like a pretty smart business model.
It does, and it seems to be working really, really well. Their recent Q3 earnings absolutely blew past expectations.
Yeah, let's talk about those numbers because they are pretty impressive. What were the highlights?
Yeah, so revenue hit $1.2 billion, which is a 39% increase year over year.
Billion.
Their adjusted EBITDA was $722 million, which is a whopping 72% jump. And get this, their free cash flow was $545 million, up an astounding 182% compared to last year.
Well, those are some serious numbers. Clearly, they're doing something right. But what's the secret sauce behind this incredible growth? The CEO kept mentioning something called AXON in the earnings call. What is that all about?
Yeah, so AXON is their AI-powered technology that drives their entire advertising platform. Think of it as like the brains of the operation.
The brains, okay.
And the CEO was highlighting these recent enhancements that they made to AXON, and he credits those advancements with creating what he called a step change in their growth, particularly in their core mobile gaming advertising business.
Well, AI seems to be everywhere these days, so it's no surprise AppLovin is leveraging it too.
Right.
But how exactly is AXON giving them an edge?
Well, it's all about making those ad placements more targeted and efficient. They're constantly refining their algorithms to better match advertisers with the right users at the right time. And they're not stopping there. The CEO is extremely bullish on the future of AI. He believes these ongoing advancements in AI will continue to fuel AppLovin's growth for, the foreseeable future. It's giving them a significant advantage in this increasingly competitive ad tech landscape.
So it sounds like they're betting big on AI, but let's shift gears for a second. Aside from AXON, is there anything else on AppLovin's horizon that's got kind of analysts buzzing?
Sure.
I'm particularly interested in this new e-commerce venture they've been talking about.
Oh, yes, the big new bet.
That's where things get really interesting. The CEO was practically gushing about their pilot e-commerce program in the earnings call. He even called it the best product he's ever seen released. So is this just hype, Or is there, real substance to these claims?
Well, I mean, it's still early days for sure, but the early data that they've kind of shared is definitely encouraging. AppLovin is claiming that e-commerce advertisers who are participating in this pilot program are seeing substantial returns, often exceeding what they're getting from other marketing channels. And, some are even seeing close to 100% incrementality, which means, the traffic that they're getting from AppLovin is bringing in like entirely new customers.
Wow, that's impressive. So what's their game plan for turning this e-commerce experiment into like a full-fledged business? I mean, are they just dipping their toes in the water here, or are they, going all in?
From what we can gather from the earnings call transcript and these analyst reports, it seems like they're going all in. They're reallocating resources, they're shifting talent from other initiatives to, build up their e-commerce team, and they're planning to launch a self-service platform in 2025, which will open up the program to a much wider range of advertisers. So, this seems like a pretty major strategic shift for AppLovin.
It does. But what do the analysts think about this move into e-commerce? I mean, are they convinced that AppLovin can replicate its success in mobile gaming in this massive and very different market?
Well, the stock analysis report that you provided shows a range of price targets from different analysts, which, kind of reflects the uncertainty around this new venture. Some analysts are very bullish, believing that AppLovin has the technology, the reach, the data to become a dominant player in e-commerce advertising. Others are a bit more cautious, waiting to see how this ambitious expansion plays out. It's really, a wait-and-see game at this point.
A lot of unknowns for sure.
Yeah.
But it does seem like AppLovin is pretty confident in its long-term growth prospects overall. I mean, they're projecting 20 to 30% annual growth for the foreseeable future. And they believe these advancements in AXON and the expansion into e-commerce could potentially drive even faster growth.
That's right. And they're like putting their money where their mouth is. They've been actively buying back shares, and their board just authorized another $2 billion for buybacks. That's a pretty clear signal that they believe their stock is undervalued even after this incredible run-up in price.
That's interesting. But beyond buybacks, what else can you tell me about AppLovin's approach to capital allocation?
Okay.
Does it tell us anything about their overall strategy?
That's a great question, and it really speaks to their long-term vision. What's fascinating here is that AppLovin seems to be taking this very disciplined, long-term approach. They're prioritizing organic growth, investing heavily in their technology, in their people, while also being, mindful of costs.
Yeah, that aligns with the CEO's comment about achieving this high profitability per employee. It sounds like they're really focused on building a sustainable, profitable business, not just chasing those short-term gains, which is refreshing to see these days.
Absolutely, and they're also making this symbolic shift from quarterly to annual shareholder letters. It's a move away from the short-termism that kind of plagues so many public companies.
It's definitely a sign they're playing the long game.
Yeah.
But let's circle back to this e-commerce venture for a moment. We've talked about the potential, but what about the risks?
Right.
I mean, are there any red flags or potential roadblocks that investors should be aware of?
Well, the biggest challenge that they face is that they're entering a very, very crowded and competitive market. E-commerce advertising is dominated by giants like Google, Meta, Amazon,
Right.
who have deep pockets and vast resources.
Well, how can AppLovin possibly compete with those behemoths?
That's the billion-dollar question. AppLovin is betting that their AXON technology, combined with their massive reach within the mobile app ecosystem, will give them a unique edge.
So they're essentially saying, we might not have the same scale as a Google or an Amazon, but we can offer advertisers something they can't get anywhere else.
Yeah.
Highly targeted, personalized ads delivered to a highly engaged mobile audience.
Exactly. And remember, they're claiming near 100% incrementality with some of these e-commerce pilot partners. That suggests that they're tapping into an audience that's not being effectively reached by these existing advertising channels.
Yeah, that's a compelling argument.
Yeah.
But we also have to acknowledge that success in mobile gaming advertising doesn't doesn't automatically guarantee success in e-commerce. I mean, these are different markets with different dynamics.
Absolutely. And that's why it's, so crucial to consider those risks along with the potential rewards. E-commerce is a fiercely competitive landscape, and AppLovin will need to execute flawlessly to carve out a meaningful share of that market.
So it's a high risk, high reward situation for sure.
Yeah.
But one thing is clear: AppLovin isn't afraid to shake things up and disrupt the status quo.
Yeah, and that's a hallmark of successful tech companies, right? And their willingness to invest aggressively in new opportunities like e-commerce, while also maintaining this disciplined approach to capital allocation. It suggests that they're striking a balance between ambition and prudence.
It's a fascinating case study in how a company can leverage its existing strengths to venture into new territories.
Yeah, and it'll be interesting to see how this e-commerce play unfolds, right? Will AppLovin become, the next ad tech titan? Will they challenge the likes of Google and Meta, or will they stumble in this new arena? Only time will tell.
Well, we'll certainly be keeping a close eye on their progress.
Yeah.
But for now, let's shift back to their core business and those impressive Q3 results. What stood out to you as the most significant takeaways?
The continued strength of their software platform is definitely noteworthy. That 78% adjusted EBITDA margin for the quarter is remarkable.
Yeah.
And it really shows the inherent profitability of their business model.
And that huge jump in free cash flow is also hard to ignore.
Yeah.
I mean, that gives them a lot of flexibility to invest in growth initiatives, buy back shares, or even, explore potential acquisitions.
Speaking of acquisitions, AppLovin hasn't been very acquisitive in the past.
No.
They've mainly focused on organic growth, but could that change as they expand into new markets like e-commerce?
That's an interesting question. It's certainly possible that they might consider strategic acquisitions to bolster their capabilities in e-commerce or other areas where they see an opportunity.
Yeah.
And it'll be interesting to see how their capital allocation strategy evolves over time. Will they maintain their focus on organic growth and buybacks, or will they become more acquisitive as they seek to expand their empire?
Now, these are the kind of big picture questions that investors grapple with.
Yeah. But before we get too far ahead of ourselves, let's bring it back to the present. What's the key takeaway for anyone listening who might be considering adding AppLovin to their portfolio?
Well, AppLovin is a company that's firing on all cylinders.
Yeah.
Their core business is thriving. Their AI-powered technology is giving them this competitive edge. And they're making bold moves into new markets like e-commerce.
Yeah, but it's important to remember that there are risks involved as well.
Right.
The e-commerce venture is still unproven.
Right.
And competition in that space is fierce.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, AppLovin's success will depend on their ability to execute on their ambitious plans, to navigate this rapidly changing technological landscape, and to fend off challenges from these established players.
It's a high stakes game. Yep. And there are no guarantees. But one thing is for sure, AppLovin is a company to watch closely in the years to come.
They've definitely earned their place among the most exciting and potentially disruptive forces in the tech world today.
Well said. So we've covered a lot of ground, and it's clear AppLovin is a fascinating company with a lot of potential. But this begs the question: what happens if they actually pull it off in e-commerce?
Mm-hmm.
Could this be bigger than just a win for AppLovin?
Yeah, it is a compelling thought. I mean, imagine a world where AppLovin's Egason is dictating, ad placement and pricing across a big chunk of online retail.
Right.
That's a potential paradigm shift for the whole e-commerce landscape.
Yeah, now you got me thinking. Could we see a scenario where these established giants, like your Googles, your Metas, your Amazons, actually feel threatened? Would they have to adapt their strategies to counter AppLovin's rise?
I don't think it's beyond the realm of possibility. Remember, AppLovin is claiming near 100% incrementality
Right.
with some of their e-commerce partners.
Mm.
And if they can consistently like deliver that kind of, new customer acquisition, it becomes a very, very compelling proposition for advertisers.
So you're suggesting that AppLovin's success in e-commerce could actually force like the big players to
Yeah.
innovate, potentially even leading to lower ad costs for businesses.
Yeah.
And that's a pretty significant ripple effect.
Exactly. Yeah. And for you listening, this highlights the importance of understanding these disruptive forces like AppLovin, whether you're an investor or simply someone who participates in the online world. The outcome of this e-commerce play, it could have implications for all of us.
Yeah. This deep dive has certainly given us a lot to consider. AppLovin's story is far from over, and it seems like the next few chapters could be the most interesting yet. What would you say is the single most important thing for our listener to keep in mind going forward?
I think it's watch how AppLovin balances their aggressive growth ambitions with their disciplined approach to capital allocation.
Oh, yeah.
I think that balance will really determine their ultimate success.
That's a thought-provoking point to end on. And for all of you listeners out there, if you want to continue exploring fascinating companies and trends like this, hit that subscribe button and don't forget to ring that bell. So you don't miss out on our future deep dives. We'll be here, diving deep into the world of business and technology. Until next time.